excited to advance.
Oh, they do?
Thanks.
They talk, right?
They do?
They don't care what you are and what your name is and.
Okay, everyone,
Instruction on.
let's start our meeting. I'll call our meeting to order. I want to welcome everyone to the Monday, December 2nd, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting. My first order of business is to call roll. Susan Ainsley.
Present.
Wolfgang Bulmer.
Present.
Carolyn Greenwald.
Here.
Kathleen Yen.
Here.
Here. And Ronnie Hardaway is here. I want to introduce Siobhan Hall. Siobhan will be making the presentation tonight on the Lansing Non-Pipes Alternatives Program, which we will come to right after we approve our minutes. So the next order of business is our public comment period. This is the period this is the moment in the meeting when anyone who is online or in the room who would like to speak to a topic that's not on our agenda can speak. Is there anyone? I don't see anyone online at the moment, so, and I think we've accounted for everyone, but Art, is there anyone here who would like to make a comment? Seeing none, hearing none, I will move that we close the public comment period.
Second.
Wolfgang seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next order of business is to approve our minutes from both November 14th and 18th, 2024. We will have to do them separately since I was absent on November 14th. So I will move someone who was at the meetings.
I will move that we approve the 14th.
I second it.
Thank you both. Although, or is there any discussion on the November 14th minutes?
Just their corrected, minor correction.
Okay, and Jody made the corrections for you. Okay, thank you both. All right. Any other discussion?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Should I say that?
I was thinking you probably should. Go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I will
One
abstain.
abstention.
I will abstain. Okay, for the November 18th meeting minutes, we were all here, so I will move that we approve the draft minutes from November 18th, 2024.
Second.
I think Susan Ainsley seconded first.
Wolfgang's giving it to me.
Is there any discussion on those minutes? No. Not for me either. All those in favor of approving the draft minutes from November 18th, say aye. Aye. That's unanimous. So those are approved too. So the next order of business is the presentation by Siobhan Hall on our Lansing Non-Pipes Alternatives Program. Siobhan?
Wonderful.
Jody will bring up your slides, so she'll just need a notice when to move forward.
I can do that. Thank you for putting my slides up.
Do you have a handout?
I have a couple of things if you're interested in looking at them.
Yes?
Yes.
I'll give them out at the end.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah, it's just, up here it's fine though, so you should be able to see it okay, right? Okay,
Okay. Oh, sitting here is good. Everyone can hear me and see me?
we can all hear you, and the microphones will pick up your voice. You'll be very clear as we are anyway.
Perfect. That sounds great. So my name is Siobhan Hall, and I work at the Cornell Cooperative Extension, and I work specifically on the Lansing Non-Pipes Alternatives Program, which is what I'm going to chat a little bit about today, and I wanted to bring it forward to you all because it's particularly relevant to the village of Lansing, and Lansing is sort of the center of this program, so wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of it and how it functions and how your constituents are involved in this. So can you go to the next slide? So I wanted to start by just giving a little bit of background about why this program exists. And so, as I'm sure everyone who's lived here for a long time is familiar with, there has been a lot of people who have moved into the area in the past decade and a half. There's more people living in Ithaca, more people living in Lansing and the surrounding areas. And so as a result of that, there are more people who are on the gas line in the area. And there's been increased demand on the natural gas line that have resulted in low pressure levels on the gas line, particularly towards the end of it, which ends in Lansing. And so because of that low gas pressure issue, it poses a slight safety and reliability concern. If everybody is turning their heat up all at the same time on a particularly cold day, the pressure levels could drop to an unsafe level. And so because of that, NYSEG instituted a natural gas moratorium in Lansing in February of 2017. So that means that no new connections to the gas line can be made. If that's new construction, if that's a building that's being renovated and wanted to hook up to the gas line where they weren't previously, that's not allowed to happen because of these safety and reliability concerns on the gas line.
So your slide says that Lansing instituted it.
It was, NYSEG instituted it in Lansing. It is not something that the town or the village of Lansing decided to do. It was imposed by NYSEG. Next.
We should be
Yeah.
Lansing experienced, I guess, more.
Yeah, yes.
And just a question, and this map shows all of the current gas lines?
Yeah, so this map shows that, like, houses that are currently hooked into the gas line, the area.
And so any gas lines that are dormant with no use on them would not show on the map, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah. I know NYSEG is also very secretive in general about where exactly all of their gas infrastructure is for security reasons.
Sure.
This is the best map that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, could you go to the next slide? So because of this gas pressure, gas reliability issues, NYSEG's original solution was to increase gas levels by installing a new pipeline. They said, no problem, we'll bring more gas into the area, we'll put a new pipeline in, mostly going through Dryden and ending up around Warren Road. We'll increase the amount of gas that's available, that will fix the pressure issues. The other proposal that had sort of been floated was this idea of installing gas compressor stations, which would serve to sort of artificially increase the pressure levels and help to monitor it. And so the two pictures on the slides, the one above is where the proposed pipeline was going to be roughly, and the one below is sort of what these gas compressor stations sort of looks like. Next slide. People did not love the idea of installing a new pipeline. There was a lot of community pushback, both from residents in Dryden, which is where the pipeline was primarily going to pass through. There was some pushback from folks who are living here in Lansing, and they said, we really don't want NYSEG to be drilling this new pipeline. And so in response to that, NYSEG said, okay, we'll shift to a different plan, and we're going to have to figure out a way to actually decrease the amount of gas that's being used in Lansing and in the surrounding areas as a way to address these pressure issues. And so they put out this call for proposals asking for projects that would serve to do exactly that, which was to decrease the amount of gas that was being used in the area. And so that's what the Lansing Non-Pipes Alternatives Program is. It's the result of this call for proposals. It's a package of a bunch of different projects that are all working to lower gas use in the area. Next slide. And so just before I talk about what those projects are, just like quickly pointing out some of the reasons that it's beneficial for us to have this non-pipes alternatives project rather than having the pipeline. First, being the obvious reason of that, it is addressing the health and safety issue of there being pressure issues on the gas line, and so this is a way to sort of help address that. The second big reason that I think is really unique to Lansing is that this is an opportunity for Lansing to be getting off of natural gas, which, you know, as we're all familiar with, is a fossil fuel whose the combustion of it is releasing emissions that are driving climate change. And so this project is sort of an opportunity for Lansing to move towards more sustainable energy sources. It's also possible that by getting folks off of gas, they could be saving money on their utility bill. That, of course, depends on what electric prices are and what gas prices are. They've changed a lot in the past couple of years. It's not always the case that somebody's going to be saving money, but it is possible that if they weatherize their home and they insulate it and they switch over to electric, their utility bills could be lower. It's also a more immediate solution than the pipeline would have been. It was going to be a long journey of collecting all of the easements and actually putting in the infrastructure, and this is a more immediate way to start getting people off of gas now. Next slide. So there were originally 7 projects that were part of the non-pipes alternatives program. 2 of them have either dropped out or haven't really advanced forward. So there are really only 5 projects that are actively part of the non-pipes alternatives, or I'm going to say NPA, because non-pipes alternatives is a bit of a mouthful. And the largest one, and the one that I think is most relevant to people who live in Lansing, is the residential heat pump component. So as part of this program, Earth Sensitive Solutions is a company that is able to offer incentives for people to switch off of natural gas and instead install electric heat pumps, whether that is air source or ground source. And so I'll show you the map later, but there's a tiered incentive system for people living in Lansing, Cayuga Heights, and Ithaca, with people living in Lansing having access to the highest level of incentives for switching over to an electric system. There's also the Cornell Cooperative Extension is tasked with doing outreach around the program. That's why I'm here. I work for CCE. I am just here to distribute information about it. I don't work for any of the contractors, and I don't work for any of the actual infrastructure projects. The Cornell Child Care Center upgraded to a geothermal system, and that was one of the projects in the NPA portfolio because it's in the broader geographic zone. Just this fall, the Lansing Middle School finished with some upgrades to their system. They did not switch to fully electric, but they did install more efficient gas heating system in the school, so that's reducing gas use. And there's one more project that hasn't gotten off the ground yet, but is theoretically still being worked on, which is an effort to install a looped geothermal system in a neighborhood in Lansing. So that would be several houses all tied into the same geothermal system. So those are the 5 main projects that are comprising the Lansing NPA program today.
May I ask you a question? Do you have any candidates for locations for the closed loop?
There is a specific location that isn't publicly available because they haven't signed a contract and actually advanced with the project, but there is a site that they're working with.
So there is a site that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Good, and that's good progress.
Next slide. So just as like a little bit of background, because it's something that the project focuses really heavily on, is this idea of getting heat pumps installed both in residential and commercial and municipal buildings. So 3 main types of heat pumps are air source, ground source, which is also referred to as geothermal, and you can also get heat pump hot water heaters installed. And the big thing that we sort of talk about beyond just the benefits of electrification is that heat pumps are able to provide both heating and cooling. So if people did not previously have air conditioning in their home, by installing a heat pump, you're not only upgrading your heating system, but you're also getting access to cooling where you didn't have that previously. And so heat pumps, of course, operate through electric rather than gas combustion, which is why NYSEG is interested in promoting it. And it works kind of similar to a refrigerator. It's moving warm air from the outside into your home in the winter months, and in the cooler months, it's extracting in a very efficient way the cool air from outside and moving it indoors. So there are just a couple of pictures of what the air source heating units look like. That's the top and the one on the bottom right, and then geothermal there on the bottom left. Next slide.
Before you go, have you had a lot of demands for the air source water coolers?
There has been some. Often people are pursuing these projects when they have things break in their house.
Right.
So when people have their hot water heater break and they learn that this is an option, that's when they're more likely. I'm not seeing tons of people seek it out unless they've already heard of it. But there are a good number of people who have been installing the heat.
And is Earth Source Solutions the contractor who is installing those, or is it another contractor?
You're getting ahead of my slides. Yeah, right here.
Move
Yeah.
forward. If
Yes.
it's answered later, that's.
Yes, so Earth Sensitive Solutions is sort of the company that works directly with NYSEG to sort of hold the incentive, and they work with 3 partner contractors. So they work with Halco, they work with Van He, and they work with Daily Electric. And so in order to actually access these incentives, residents need to work with one of those 3 contractors. And so that's sort of the limitation of the program, is you do have to know that it exists and know which contractors are eligible to work within it. And so the incentive that you're able to access depends on where you live, and it depends on the size of the existing gas system you're removing. So the map that's here on the slides, the red zone is where the highest level of incentives are, and that's in the town of Lansing and in the village of Lansing. So anybody who is a resident of the village of Lansing is eligible for this highest tier because they're at the end of the line, and this is where pressure issues are largest. But people living in village of Cayuga Heights, as well as in parts of city and town of Ithaca, are also eligible for a lower level of incentives. But as we were discussing earlier, all incentives work various different ways, but this particular one, because it's aimed at reducing gas usage, it does require you to actually remove your existing gas infrastructure. You can't keep the heating system in there as a backup. You have to actually take it out in order to get the money. Next slide. Also wanting just to be aware that, you know, if you're living in the village of Lansing, this is a substantial incentive, but it's not the only one. There are other incentives across the state and available federally that people can access. So there's things like the NYSEG Clean Heat Rebate Program that offers some money. Through the IRA, people are now able to access some federal tax incentives. We don't need to go through the specifics of all of those right now, but just letting you know that there are ways to stack various incentives and bring that total project cost down. And people who live in Lansing are pretty well poised because the NPA incentive is a pretty significant addition to the existing other ones that people have access to. I'm not sure if there's another slide.
We'll see.
Perhaps.
2 more.
Perfect. This was my big ask, which is, I come here because we don't know exactly if this program is going to get renewed or not. As of right now, the end date for these residential incentives is going to be in June of 2025 at some point, which is 7-ish months from now. And because there's a lot of uncertainty about whether or not it will get renewed, there is sort of a time-sensitive nature to connecting people with these incentives and making sure that they're able to access them if they are potentially going to go away. And so wanting to bring this to the village of Lansing and see if there are ways that we can spread the word about the incentives and help connect interested residents to the different options that are available to them. I will say that at the Cornell Cooperative Extension, we offer free home energy advising. So anybody who lives in Tompkins County is welcome to give us a call, and we'll talk through your unique situation and figure out which specific grants and programs you're eligible for, because it's really confusing to navigate and they change the rules all the time, and it's super helpful to have somebody to walk through with you and try to help figure out what makes sense. I'll also just throw out there that municipal buildings are eligible for the NPA program. The town of Lansing is in the process of upgrading their HVAC system and is likely going to be installing a geothermal system, and they're getting money through the NPA program. So if there's any desire from the village of Lansing to do something like that, that money is available. And I also know that there's a climate smart task force that the village of Lansing has, so I'm not sure if there might be some avenues for collaboration there for the task force. So that's all that I have on my end, but I'd be happy to take questions, and I will try my best to answer, and if I don't know, then I will find out for you.
So I saw a price of 48,000.
Yeah, as a
The original 48,000. So what's that based on?
yeah, that, honestly, it's really difficult to give an estimate of like what it would look like to install in your house, because it depends on how big your house is, what size system you're going to need, if you're doing air source or geothermal. 40,000 is not an unreasonable number of what we're seeing as like a base price if people are installing air source, but it's super variable. So we just provide like a basic example. I really can't give you a good estimate.
And your contact information is here on the last slide. So what we've done in the past is that we've presented this slide presentation off of our homepage on our website, which presents all of your information and gives you contact information. We just passed our fall newsletter, but we could also put something in our spring newsletter, which would be out in April, I think.
That would be.
End of March.
End of March, April.
I think we got something into the fall newsletter.
Okay.
I believe.
I think the two.
So we can basically put another article in, we can point them to your contact information within the article, but we could also point them to the slides as they are on our website. And then if you are aware of a significant change to the slides at some point and you want to update the information, you could just send us the new versions and we could substitute those with these, and therefore they would get the most current information if anything comes up.
That sounds great.
The newsletters, we don't normally do an email to our village mail list for something like this, but it would be up to the trustees if we decided we wanted to do that. But we try to shy away from that and just let the newsletter do something.
Sure.
Do the communications, just so we don't inundate people with what seem to be marketing.
I understand the dangers of the listservs.
Yeah, we all do. But that's primarily what we would do. And then our Climate Smart Task Force meets monthly, roughly, and we could discuss if we might come up with another way, something different, slightly different. But that's generally the vehicles for getting the information out from within the village.
If NASAG does not renew the program, are they then, and this is just if you know any kind of wind, how the wind is blowing, are they then going to then think about one of the original two alternatives of either the pipeline or the compressors, because or else this building is stymied or people don't have heat, which is not acceptable?
Yeah, I can't say for sure what NICEAG is going to do. I would say it's a possibility that they would move forward with either of the original plans, which would be to build an
Have you
additional
heard
pipeline.
anything?
They haven't told us anything definitively. We've raised this issue of whether or not they're going to renew, and they haven't given us.
Because I almost
an
wish both
answer.
alternatives were available to people. I mean, it's a shame to have to take out the gas, you know, if you wanted it as a backup. I mean, I could see wanting it as a backup, just being terribly afraid that you'd be left with no heat. And it's there, so to remove it, I mean, agreeing not to use it unless you need it, I think is fair enough, but then you have to take it out. It's just like that one extra hurdle that people
Yeah.
would have to face.
This program is pretty unique in requiring that you remove the existing infrastructure because of the scenarios that it arose from, but the other, like the NICEAG's clean heat rebate, is based on what you're putting in, so the incentive is based on the new air source or ground source heat pump system you're putting in, so those incentives are calculated.
Right, I think it would be very happy to put it in if it was foolproof, and then they wouldn't worry, but I think people in the cold climate would worry, like, okay, well, we have backup, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I will say that
There are similar programs in Europe, and you get, the amount of incentives you get is depending on whether you kick out the old system or whether you keep the old system. So if you keep the old system, your incentive gets reduced.
I prefer that. I prefer to give the person a
So,
choice. Do you want to risk it, or do you want more money? And then
No,
somebody pay for themselves.
there are numerous programs over there.
I like
Reason why I asked you for the price. I give you a price, Germany, 32,000 euro for a typical house, and it's good for about 75% of all houses, even over there, old. Now I give you another price. France, 18,000, the same. It's exactly the same system, by the way.
Yeah,
You know what the difference is?
I know very little.
If you look at your 18,000, subsidies and grants, that's the difference. And that all goes into Halco's and whoever's pockets. So actually, with the taxpayers' money, you line the pockets of your contractors. That's actually what's happening. And if you're interested in it, just Google it and look at some of these studies over in Europe. That's quite good database.
What percentage of the people do you think decide, take it out, I want the full amount of the rebate, versus let me leave it in as a backup?
Well, there are more in the package. So, you know, if you put solar on the roof, you get even more. And if you do that and this and the other, so it's more or less a full package. They have the same nonsense like here. You need one of these advisors. And they typically know how to write a request for a grant, but they have no idea about the technology. unfortunately. So they talk people into much more expensive solutions than actually they have a need for. So there is a lot of things around it. Again, if you're really interested in it, look at it worldwide, and you will see a lot of different, but the higher the incentives, and it all ends up at the same price, what you have up there, 18,000, that's about the price. That's the real one.
I'm interested in exploring the most clean, energy efficient model. At the same time, as someone who's representing the people of Lansing, I've heard from people directly that they're upset that they can't have gas lines. And so, to the extent that people want it, I wish we could provide an option for it. And then the extent that people want to go with a cleaner route, the geothermal, I think that's great. I want to incentivize that as much as possible. But I also want people who want to be able to hook up to gas to be able to. So I wish that we could, another thing that we talked about that NYSEG doesn't let people do is recoup. Like if one person comes off, then we could have one for a future build. And the people who want the natural gas can have it, and the people who want to do the thermal can have it. But that's not currently the program either.
No.
But some of that might possibly change if they end the program. They might start looking at alternative ways of keeping some gas and switching as many people as possible to electric. So maybe that at the end of the program, there might be some more discussions.
I do think that there is, as the program comes to an end, that if we can provide information and you as a municipality could also make recommendations or write something to NYSEG about what you would like to see them doing.
I think another issue that at least, and this is from several years ago, it's not just providing gas through the lines, but it's maintaining the gas lines that NYSEG is responsible for. And the older lines, if someone keeps it in their home, they're still going to have to spend money to monitor the lines and make sure there are no leaks, and if there are leaks, replace the lines. So the more lines they can shut down and cut off, their maintenance fees drop, which I think is part of their equation. It's not necessarily our issue, but it's theirs, and I think that's one reason why they want to shut off lines.
But with this, it would only be the heat source, so like, you have other gas items in your house that you wouldn't shut off all of the gas to your house.
Yeah, a lot of people are still keeping their
Washer,
stoves.
dryer, stove,
Yeah.
fireplace.
And you can keep that.
It's just the heating part.
Well, so the incentive is calculated based on what you're removing. So how many BTUs of a gas furnace you're removing. So you could put that number in. It doesn't mean you need to cut off gas completely to your house.
Cooking gas,
That's good to know.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then that's also with the build, some people still want to cook with gas, but they can't.
Yeah, restaurants especially. All right, any other questions for Siobhan?
I do have some quarter cards as well with just information about the program. If anybody is interested in looking at that or wants one at all, I can just pass the stack around.
We have, coming up in our neighborhood, like a little neighborhood event. I can just, if you want to give me this whole stack, I'll leave them on my table.
That sounds perfect.
Well, if anybody wants, I'll take the rest
I'd like to have
and
one.
put
I'll
them
take one so
out
somebody
next
else-
weekend, or weekend after next.
If anybody wants a poster, would you like to?
Thank you. Well, I think it's a complex topic, and that transition, having a tiered transition is, but I think the more information, thank you for doing this, basically, because the more information we can give to all of the residents to help them understand
Yeah,
where we are, what incentives are there, so that they can make informed decisions. So I really appreciate you coming and doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me have space for that, because I do think there are lots of people who live in Lansing and just don't know that the program exists, and we're not wanting people to find out about it after it ends.
Yeah, it's important, an important communication would be that it's a possibility it will end in June. So if people are getting close to the end of life for an appliance, say, that it might be a good time to jump in, so, and that's in the presentation, isn't it? The end date?
The end date's not in the presentation, but I can add it to the slides if you would like.
Why don't you add that to the slides and then send it to me and just say, we're not sure, but just as you stated, and that way it might. And we can also put, before the link to the slideshow, we can state that there's a possibility that this program will end in June of next year, and if you're interested, please view these slides and contact you, and you can put them in touch with ESS or a contractor.
That sounds perfect. I can send you updated slides.
Yeah, do that tomorrow.
Yep.
I guess, and I can't, I don't know, I really can't hear very well, but are you saying that the program, the incentive program goes through June of 25?
That's the original contract.
The original contract, so you have no guarantee that will be extended by this program, or at the state level, or at the federal level, because we could have changes in the wind.
Absolutely. That's true too.
If someone were to opt for, going for an NPA system, do they sign a contract that guarantees they get the incentive?
Yeah, it would be
sign that.
doing that in conjunction with their contractor. So when the contractor gives you a quote, it would also include this incentive with it, and that would be part of the work you do with the contractor.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Siobhan.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
I'm happy to hang around for a little while.
It's totally up to you.
You don't have to.
It is not required.
I appreciate that. Well, if anyone has additional questions, feel free to email or call Matt the Cooperative Extension every day.
Thank you, Siobhan. And if you hear anything that updates, or any type of updates,
Yeah.
let us know too, okay?
Yes, certainly. If you hear anything from NYSEG, be sure to share. They don't like saying things, but if they do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, our next order of business is to set our joint meeting with the planning board for January 13th, 2025, which we have previously discussed. Are there any questions about that? Good night.
Night.
Are we gonna not have a trustee meeting a certain day? Like are we meeting also on the 6th and the 20th?
20th is a holiday.
So we're not meeting on the 20th. So we're gonna meet on the 6th and the 13th then?
Yep,
Yeah.
Okay.
and the new meetings.
So I will move that we set our joint meeting with the planning board, the village planning board, for January 13th, 2025 at 7 PM.
Second?
Kathleen seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mayor's comments, I don't really have any comments for tonight. Just hope everyone had a Thanksgiving, and obviously we're into the winter weather now, so that's surprise, snow, so. But the streets have all looked good. The sidewalks, even the new DART drive has been plowed, successfully, so it's moving as it should be, and I haven't heard any complaints or unusual issues with the plowing of either roads or sidewalks, so I guess we're in good shape related to the DPW.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I don't know.
We haven't had to plow a lot.
It sort of
They
looked
didn't
like
plow today.
they might have just spread the de-icer today, because a lot of the roads were kind of white with the powdery or the sleet style snow, but ours was completely black, so they put something down, no plowing, but spreading de-icer, which is fine by me. So, but that's all I have for tonight. We'll go around the table. Wolfgang, do you have anything? Susan?
No, nothing.
Okay. Carolyn?
Regarding updating our code, I spoke to a couple people. I called the Village of Dryden, and I spoke to their clerk, and I asked them about their experience that they had with general code. And the clerk was pretty positive about what their experience was. They spent $17,000, their original budget was $10,000. And she said that she really liked the attorneys that they worked with, and, but you also just kind of start with talking to the salesperson. So I put in a phone call to general code, and the salesperson called me back, so I have not spoken to any of the attorneys who do the actual work. And I was on the phone, so I didn't take notes during the conversation, but I did learn a couple of interesting things. They did our original code update, which was 20 years ago. And the salesperson was just under the impression, like, you haven't done a code update in 20 years, but what he didn't realize was that we do code updates all the time, like, this is a code update. He thought that since we hadn't hired them for 20 years, that our code book was 20 years out of date. And I was like, no, our code book is like up to date to yesterday, except now it's not, because I have this. But as soon as I put this in, it'll be completely up to date. So I guess they have municipalities where they come in and their code book has literally never been updated, so that's kind of what they do. So that, I feel like we don't need, because we do that. But what they do, which I really was attracted to, was, have you guys ever gone to the town of Ithaca to look up a law, and it's this E-codes thing? I mean, you've done it, I've done it. So you don't, when you go to the Village of Lansing's code, it's a PDF, and it's not searchable.
It is searchable.
Some
It's not
sections are.
searchable the way E-codes is searchable.
Okay.
And so if each of you wants to just try to go to the town of Ithaca and search for anything, it's just a great system. And that is, he said that's their system. And so I would be interested in pursuing that, with getting our code online. And since our code is even shorter than everybody else's codes, then that would be a small job. So that was interesting to me, and that was appealing to me.
Question, is it something that they do and there's an annual fee to keep up
That's a good question.
incorporating?
You didn't mention an annual
Because we
fee.
pass laws, so then now.
Right, then it gets
we have to
updated.
Send to them, and they're the one that does the update instead of me?
I think that you'd
think
probably
so.
be able to do it, why wouldn't you just be able to input it?
Well, I think they now manage the updating of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
and
So now
maintaining
you're
of it.
hiring somebody else and getting.
I believe, I would.
But I have only had the preliminary conversation with them. He was supposed to email me, we haven't had the second conversation, but
It's a good question.
is it manual updates, or
That was gonna-
is it a contract of
Too,
updates?
is it an annual subscription,
Subscription,
and who is responsible for the migration of
yeah,
code
that's,
from PDF?
they would be responsible for the migration of the code, that I know.
Okay.
So do they require, and another question, specific modules that would then have to be purchased,
I don't know what you mean by modules.
computer modules for the.
What's a computer module?
The record system?
It depends upon what you want to do. Like, for instance, you can search, but you can't print. You might have to buy a module for searching.
Oh, no, I
No,
don't
it's a
think
web,
so.
no, it's just a website.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
But that's a valid question.
So it'd be on their website.
Yeah, it's like, if you type in ecodes.com, like, the town of Ithaca's on it, the Village of Cuba Heights, I know.
But the
is
town
on
has it on their own website also, you don't have
It's
to
like
go
a
to
link,
E-codes.
yeah, to it. A lot of municipalities are on it.
It's a good thing. It's not
I find
bad.
it very user-friendly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll take a look
that
at
was,
it.
Navigate.
that appealed to me. And he said that was their proprietary thing. Okay, so now I also spoke to Collier, and I had a meeting with two people, and they're sort of a bigger thing, what they do. They were saying that this is like a $30,000 to $70,000 project, depending on what we want them to do, and I was like, none of that. But anyway, they also were sort of more, they were saying that they're zoning focused specifically, as opposed to like the full code, that they just kind of just, their niche is kind of just zoning. But what I really liked about that conversation with them was we had some conversations about the grants. And the most important thing that I learned was that when you're applying for the Smart Growth Program grants, they look at your comprehensive plan and they say, how does your comprehensive plan fit our smart growth plans? And that's when they award the grant. So what I think that we should do is, when we're doing our comprehensive plan update next year, think about what parts of the aspects of the smart growth program we're interested in and make sure that we're incorporating that. And then if we want to apply for the grant, we're a good grant candidate. And so that would be how we would do it for them. So then we're talking about doing a code update of this kind in 2027, which is fine. But anyway, that, if we did do the smart growth grant, it's a 90% grant, so we would be responsible for 10%. And there's also a local government efficiency grant that we could also use, and And they told me about their hourly rate, you're basically paying 150 to 190 per hour, depending on who's doing it. And they asked us how interested we were in smart growth principles, and I said, we're probably interested in, just generally in smart growth principles, diversity in housing, and being are we designated a housing pro community?
I don't believe we are.
So we want to think about these things when we're doing the comprehensive plan update, which smart growth principles we want to adapt. And if we want to adapt a bunch of them, then think about going for this grant. And maybe we don't want to adapt them, maybe they're not right for us, but if they are, then I would do it that way. I would do the comprehensive plan update first, and then then apply for the grant, as opposed to applying now. Because they also, a 10-year comprehensive plan,
Cycle.
at the end of you were unlikely to get the grant, because they're gonna say, well, what does your comprehensive plan say? And we're not gonna really have talked about smart growth principles, or at least the ones we're interested in, just because it was 10 years ago.
And are there guidelines?
Pro-housing community is under the Department of, the State Department, that umbrella.
The New York State
Yeah.
designation.
So the pro-housing community does require you to be a pro-housing community certified to even be eligible to apply for that grant.
So we may or
That
may
was the
not want to
NICOM.
be pro-housing, but that's just one of the smart growth
Yeah.
principles we might want to adopt. And I think we
What's the
should,
definition of pro-housing? Exactly.
So there's a resolution, so back in, at NICOM, so when I gave the NICOM report, that was included in that October trustee meeting. So there's a resolution you have to adopt. You can't change it. It means that these are the values you adhere to. So I think everybody got that.
Yeah, you sent
Then
us your,
they do require an annual update, and that would be from the code enforcement officer and the planning board. A lot of it is information that already has to be submitted anyways. You know.
Are they wanting you, pro-housing, are they wanting you to have, like low-income housing? Is that what it is? Or what is pro-housing?
Even if so they're looking at any kind of growth, and even if there isn't growth, that's okay if you're a small village. What they want to see is some movement toward increased number of available units for people. I don't have.
They want your
I remember you
principles-
talking about
they
it.
want your
At
principles
certain
to
years,
allow-
you have to-
Right, so so I'd have to go back and look at that report that I gave you guys, but basically,
Pushing development, is what you're saying.
well, basically, you have to, they're trying to collect information to inform policy in the state. That is one of the main purposes, so that they can, it's basically data collection to see what is working, what is not working in the state, and make recommendations.
well, if you have a
to
unified
policymakers.
development ordinance, you could be pro-housing in that way. And that would just, your goal there is to make a process that is streamlined, so that everybody has the same process when they apply, for a building permit or whatnot. So if we had something like that, that would be amongst the pro-housing principles.
So you have cluster development is one example that's already in the code, where you have green space plus greater variety of housing options. That would be an example. So they're basically collecting, what permits, not decks or anything like that, but that are actual housing units that the code officer already has to report.
my gut feel is that we're already doing a lot of the things that they want. It's just reporting to them.
So the advantage would be if in the future you intend to apply for any of that funding, which is a requirement, I think beneficial to at least look at the resolution and to just look at that list of data that would need to be updated annually.
Well, we could put that on our agenda for a certain
Yeah.
day, that we want to take a close look at smart growth principles.
I think it's a,
Sounds like you guys are talking about what we already do.
Yeah, I
And
think- I
already
agree.
reporting that
matter
the code and
of-
zoning does, and the way our code is already put together.
We
So
are.
You just want to put words into a resolution so you can get a grant.
We're already doing a lot of it. What it does is it forces you to think and actually look at, and you have that tracking, and you're also putting information into a state
Well, you have to give it to the state.
database.
Yeah, to get
Yeah.
qualified for grants.
I think this would be a good topic for January 13th meeting.
Yeah,
If we could get that resolution out and information on the pro-housing community plan, so people could look at it, and the same thing for smart growth. Those are two topics that we could discuss on the 13th as some of our future goals.
that's a good idea.
That gives us, a little over a month to put that out, get it out to the planning board and ourselves, and look at it and discuss it, because we're not just committing ourselves to doing this, but we're committing Mike and the planning board, and I think we all need to have input into it.
And it'd be, yeah, and good staff discussion to get this, to get Mike involved.
Yes.
in this also.
Yeah,
What's feasible, what's not feasible.
I agree. As, and we can say no, after we've discussed it, it's just not right for us. But, if we want to, we can go forward.
Yeah.
And how much work would it be to document what we currently do and send in reports that we might not be sending in now, and to get a future grant to help us pay for
Exactly.
improving, what is it, government efficiency grants
Yep.
and so forth. So, yeah, it's a good discussion to have. And I think it fits right in with our comprehensive
I
plan.
did, so that's what I wanted to say. So what I learned from my conversation with Colliers is how we should consider these things when we're updating the comprehensive plan and put in what we want, and it will be beneficial for future grants.
Yeah. Not that we
Versus
have to apply for them, but if you don't
versus
have some things you
running
want
it
to
over
apply,
them
you
now.
can't.
Yeah, versus like doing something with Colliers tomorrow,
Yeah.
which I think would be premature.
Yeah. We can discuss it.
So I do want to speak again to general code, find out more information, and we'll speak to Colliers again maybe in 2027.
If there's enough interest, do you think they might be willing to come to the January 13th meeting and make a presentation?
On E-codes?
Yeah.
I have no idea, but
Okay.
I can certainly ask.
That's a possibility. And that way we've got all the people in the room that kind of will be impacted by it.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a suggestion. If they
Okay,
can't, it's
I will
not a
call
big
and
deal.
ask them.
It could be done at the future
That might be too much for,
for the January 13th meeting.
don't you think, if we have the E-codes and then
Possibly.
also smart growth?
Yeah,
And then whatever the other topics that we were already gonna talk about?
yeah, it might be too much. But,
We could just do the E-codes, if this person wants to give a presentation on that.
it's something to pursue for the meeting. If we
I
think
will
it's
call
good.
them and ask them.
Okay, and just
Maybe.
find out,
Okay,
and see if they could give us a brief
sure.
presentation. Or if they've got resources online that we can all be pointed to and research ourselves before the meeting. That would be just as good. They may already have canned presentations on how it works, for instance.
I bet they want to, I mean, they're in sales, I bet they want to
Oh, sure.
pitch.
Yeah, right, okay.
Okay,
Anything else, Carolyn?
that's it.
Good discussion.
Oh, sorry, one more thing. For the comprehensive plan committee, Lorraine is going to join us.
Good.
Good deal. Kathleen?
Well, let's see, the 19th was the webinar for the comprehensive plan, and I saw you
I know,
on
I
it
was
with your
there.
question.
It wasn't that relevant, but we
Yeah.
sat through it.
It
You never
was-
know until you
It was
sit through it.
interesting. November 21 is the next Climate Smart Community,
November.
December,
December.
yeah, that's,
I.
Yes, I know.
Still at Thanksgiving, sorry, it's December. Let's see, yeah, December 19th, I'm sorry, 5 o'clock. let's see. There was an email from Mike Scott. There's no planning board on the 9th.
Right.
And Mike did follow up with the PowerPoint presentation for the navigating electrical outages that the county had approved because they're updating that hazard mitigation plan, and the village has a section of that.
Okay, yes.
So everybody should have seen that, which was good. And then Town of Lansing, just their issue number 3, their quarterly went out, and it just had information on the Greenway grants. And reports, fund balance policy, preliminary 5-year forecast, budget overview for 2025, and open positions on the board and committees. So that's about it.
Kathleen, is there anything else from anyone? Okay, then I will move that we adjourn.
Second.
Susan seconds. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. It is 8:21.